ND filters. Never really completely understood them, but can they help the O3 air unit get a better image? So I've grabbed this set of really nice Freewell ND filters for the O3 air unit and the DJI Avata. I've paid for these with my own money. I just wanted to see what it's all about. But they're super nice, come in this really nice case, and they just look so well made. They fit absolutely perfect on the O3 air unit. You're going to need to have your camera far forward so you can actually fit these on because they are quite big. But they snap on really nice and snug. They're not going to come off. You know, I've hit this a few times and it hasn't come off. So I'm not going to beat around the bush or go into any technical details about how these things work. But basically today was a really, really clear day and the sun was beaming through, no cloud whatsoever. Similar sort of day to the first test I did with the O3 air unit and was kind of like, no, I'm not really sure whether I'm that impressed with the image quality. It was good, don't get me wrong, it was really good, but not as good as I'd maybe hoped. And I think this comes down to a lot of things. I don't know, I was just getting some very sort of strange sort of shimmery lines on the image, which I thought was to do with micro vibrations on this little frame. Changed props, changed different things, and it didn't really solve it. Then I actually kind of made a soft mount for this camera on here. Bit of a bodge, but you know, it works. And that really improved things. But actually, when I did that test, it was a lot lower light level of a day. So what I wanted to do is try again on a similar sort of day and just see if the ND filters made any difference to that image. So I should at this point say I'm using the built-in stabilisation of the O3 air unit. I'm not using gyroflow or doing anything clever or extra. I just want to get decent footage out of the O3 air unit as a standalone device. A bit like you do with a GoPro. You don't, you know, import gyro data for that most of the time. It just normally works. So my camera settings are 4K 60 ultra wide. So let's look at the footage straight from the camera first of all, then we'll try the different ND filters to see what difference they make. So as you can see, lovely day, lovely and clear. We'll take off. Right, did you see that? There was a sort of slight few bars of you know, vibration it looked like. And also that blue sky, just from a look there, you can see that the top of the blue sky is actually kind of almost like phasing. It's weird. Look, there you go. It almost looks like a sort of digital interference. As we come around here, look at the tree. The tree's sort of shimmering, or what's left of the tree, and you can sort of see some sort of like horizontal lines going across. There's a bit of quad vibration on there because of the wind, I think, but there's a slight breeze. Looks sort of okay now, but can you see what the sky, it's kind of, you know, shimmering a bit. I don't know what that's about. We go around for a second lap, you can see everything. The image quality is amazing, but there's a few little bits, you know, it just looks a little bit shimmery. I don't know what that is. Well, I haven't realised until now what this actually is. And then we go around again, that tree around the edge of the branches, you can see it there just then. It just kind of has a little bit of a, almost looks like a shake, and this is what I thought was originally like vibrations on the quad, yeah, so we're just coming for a landing now. Now let's look at the second bit of footage which I've done. Now this is using the ND8, I believe. Yeah, it was the ND8 is what I've got on there at the moment. So this is the first ND filter in the pack, the lowest one. Very autumnal, leaves for falling down there. So we take off, less shimmer. Now look at the sky. It's not doing that weird thing. And everything else in the image looks pretty nice. There's no shimmering, there's no lines. Now, I've watched this a few times, guys. As we come around the corner here, look at the tree. It's still doing that thing, but it's not quite as apparent as it was before. This just looks very stable. Slight little bit of vibration there maybe, but in general, that was a little vibration, but there's no line. There's definitely no lines of anything kind of, you know, creating any what you would think would be like a sort of vibration. And in general, the image looks amazing. You've got a nice bit of motion blur. It's obviously knocked to the f-stop, you know, back a bit so that it, you know, can do that. That's the idea of ND filters. But you know, in general, this image looks really good. So it's sharp. It's got a nice bit of motion blur. I'd be absolutely happy with that image. Nothing weird is actually going on. Now, so the last bit of footage I captured was on an ND32, so it's the third one into the pack. And you'll see why I didn't go any further and didn't test any of the others when we look at this image, because I believe that it's probably just a little bit too much. So you can already see, you know, on the takeoff there was a little bit of that kind of blur. Maybe that's not to do with it, but you see now what's happening is there's more blur around the actual trees, and the whole thing just looks a little bit more, I don't know, low contrast or high contrast. The tree looks better in my opinion, but everything else kind of looks the same really. This might have been a little bit later in the morning, so that sun might have moved a little bit, so maybe not completely fair. But we're getting noise now on the top up in the sky. You can see there's noise up in the top. So this, I would have said, is you've gone too far. It's not bright enough for that sort of filter. In general, you'd probably be happy with this, but I would prefer to have something. This reminds me of like the camera's not quite as good quality as it is. Like it's like a 2-year-old from a camera from a couple of years ago or something like that. So it's definitely dropped everything back. So it's definitely interesting, isn't it? I mean, the low sunlight in this sort of setting is actually creating some problems. You know, whether it's to do with the stabilisation and a combination between the stabilisation and the camera, I think. So you're getting some sort of interaction there, and that's making the image just not look quite as solid as it should be. So there's definitely a kind of envelope where this camera works perfectly, because we've seen an amazing I mean, I've got some amazing footage with this camera, but it was on a kind of very not dull, it wasn't even dull, the sun was actually out, but it was just, you've just got to knock that light back. Just by using an ND8, it makes a massive amount of difference. On a very dull day, which is pretty common at the moment in the UK, you know, during this sort of winter period, I was getting an image similar to that of on this video, but using the ND32. So it, you know, you're kind of losing quality. There is an ISO limit in this camera as well, in the settings, which I haven't played with, so maybe that is something to have a look at. But all in all, ND filters seem to make a lot of difference to the O3 Air unit. And of course, what we're trying to do here is we're trying to get an image out of a very, very small quad, something 2.5 inches, you know, something quiet, something you can take somewhere, you know, and you're not going to bother anyone. And that's my whole kind of aim here. I've got the Avata up there, and that creates amazing image quality, and you know, I could just use that anytime I want. But it is super noisy, and it's pretty obnoxious, that drone. So it's nice to have something fully acrobatic and lightweight, and actually get some really solid footage out of it. Anyway guys, hope you found this one useful. We'll catch you next time.